consider the nominations of Lieutenant General Glen Vanherck to be Commander, United States Northern Command, and Lieutenant General James Dickinson to be Commander of the United States Space Command. We're experiencing unique challenges and threats in our country, both been nominated for the position. I'm not going to go ahead and read the make on them because I think we're all familiar with them. There's no opposition that I know of. I speak for the committee when I say that we appreciate your willingness to serve our country in these important roles and appear before us today. So, gentlemen, I ask that you provide an audible yes or no response. These are the required questions. I assume you're both down there, so let us hear your responses, all right? Have you adhered to the applicable laws and regulations governing conflict of interest?
Yes. Yes.
Will you ensure that your staff complies with the deadlines established for requested communications, including questions for the record in hearings?
Yes.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to the congressional requests?
Yes. Yes.
Will those witnesses be protected from reprisal for the testimony or briefings?
Yes. Yes.
Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify upon the request of this committee?
Yes.
Do you agree for, I just heard one.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, good. Do you agree and provide documents, including copies of electronic forms of communication in a timely manner when requested by a duly constituted committee, or to consult with the committee regarding the basis of any good faith delay or denial in providing such documents?
Yes.
Have you assumed any duties or undertaken any actions which would appear to presume the outcome of a confirmation process?
No. No.
All right. I don't have to tell either of you about the many challenges the nation faces, both of the positions for which we are considering your nominations are at the forefront of those challenges, from responding to a global pandemic to ensuring our dominance in space. It's important that we have the right leadership for these items. At the forefront of these responsibilities is ensuring that we continue to implement and fulfill the National Defense Strategy. That's our document we refer to quite often. That's our Bible, our direction. So it's important that we keep leadership, that we can take the roles to help us win great power competition and take care of our people. So we look forward to hearing for your views on these and other important issues. Now, Senator Reid is going to vote, so we'll pick up there when he gets back. And then, I want to comment also, we have some of the senators that are attending remotely, which complicates things. I want to let everyone know how things are going to run, since it isn't possible to know exactly when our colleagues who will be joining us via computer arrive. Will not be able to be following our standard early bird timing rule. Instead, we will handle the order of questions by seniority, alternating side to side until we have gone through everyone. Once we reach the end, if there's anyone we miss, we'll go back and pick that up. We will do the standard 5 minutes rounds like we always do, and ask the colleagues and on the computers to please keep an eye on the clock, which you should see on your screens. Finally, to allow everyone to be heard, whether in the room or on the computer, I ask all colleagues to please be sure to mute your microphone when not speaking. Gentlemen, we will begin with your opening statements. Since we are meeting in unusual times, please feel free to acknowledge any family members that might be in attendance remotely as you address your statements. So let's start with General Vanherck. We'll begin with you, and then we'll carry on from there. Thank you. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Inhofe. Ranking Member Reed, I understand he's gone. I want to thank him up front as well. Distinguished committee members, it is an incredible privilege to appear before you today as the President's nominee to be Commander, United States Northern Command, and Commander, North American Aerospace Defense Command. I'd like to thank the President, the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for their confidence and for nominating me to lead these two unique but complementary commands. I would also like to thank Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau, Canadian Minister of Defense Sajjan, and the Chief of Defense Staff, General Jonathan Vance, who also concurred with my nomination. It's deeply humbling and an honor to be sitting here next to the U.S. Space Command nominee, Lieutenant General Jim Dickinson, as well. To begin, I'd like to introduce my wife, Marilyn, sitting behind me, to the committee. We ask a lot of our military families, and I can tell you without hesitation that I would not be here without the love and support of my wife and my family. Marilyn and I have been married for more than 32 years. She is an amazing woman, an inspiration to many, including myself, and the best teammate that I could have. We have had the privilege of raising a beautiful daughter, Molly, and welcoming our son-in-law, Taylor, who serves in the United States Navy, into our family. Unfortunately, they're unable to be here with us today. They have their hands full with a toddler, Theo, and also a second grandchild on the way, due in January. I've been fortunate to have my incredible family by my side throughout my military journey. Today, we face ever-growing threats to the homeland, threats from actors across all domains, threats that are very real and threats that are here today. I am committed to the National Defense Strategy and its #1 priority of defending the homeland. No mission is more sacred. We must remain prepared to meet the threats head-on and defend our homeland from an increasingly assertive set of peer competitors, rogue nations, and non-state actors who are committed to creating a new world order and influencing our freedoms and our way of life. For more than 62 years, NORAD has served as the foundation for the defense of North America. This incredible bond, coupled with military capabilities, ensures a formidable deterrent to potential adversaries and is a clear symbol of the unbreakable bond between the United States and Canada. I fully understand the importance of this mission, the value of the binational partnership, and the incredible responsibility that comes with wearing the hat of the commander of NORAD. If confirmed, it would be my distinct honor to lead the men and women of NORAD in this no-fail mission and to work closely with General Jonathan Vance as NORAD looks to modernize its capabilities while we continue to build on what is already an incredibly strong partnership. If confirmed, I look forward to working closely with our Mexican partners, including Secretary of National Defense, General Sandoval, and Secretary of the Navy, Admiral Ojeda. Also, Commodore King, new commander of Royal Bahama Defense Force, focusing on our common goals of security, peace, and prosperity. If confirmed, I commit to this committee that I will provide my best military advice and candid views on the issues and challenges we face, and I will ensure that NORTHCOM remains postured to defend the homeland and ready to provide timely support to civil authorities in order to eliminate suffering and ensure the safety of the American people. Chairman Inhofe, Ranking Member Reed, members of the committee, thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you today. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, General Vanherck. General Dickinson.
Chairman Inhofe, is it okay if we take our mask off when speaking?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Chairman Inhofe, Ranking Member Reed, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I am humbled and honored to be nominated as the Commander of U.S. Space Command. I am thankful to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of Defense, and to the President of the United States for their trust and support. I'm honored today for the opportunity to testify alongside Lieutenant General Vanherck. On a personal note, I am proud to have my family here with me today. I am a blessed man to have such a great and supporting family. First and foremost is my wife and my high school sweetheart, Angie Dickinson. We have known each other for more than 42 years and have been married for almost 34 years. Angie has dedicated her life to caring for our 4 children, while at the same time caring for the countless Army families we have had the honor to serve alongside throughout my career. Seated next to Angie are our 4 children, Deborah, Hank, Olivia, and Joe, our son-in-law, Matt, and our daughter-in-law, Sarah. Our oldest, Deborah, is an elementary school teacher, mother of 3 of our 5 grandchildren, and herself an Army spouse. Her husband, Major Matt Weisner, is a U.S. Army infantryman and a combat veteran. Our oldest granddaughter, Reagan, recently turned 9, just made her fifth move in 9 years of her life with her parents, and she's considered a true Army brat. Our son, Hank, is a newly promoted area construction superintendent. His wife, Sarah, is a neonatal intensive care nurse and the mother of 2 of our 5 grandchildren. Our daughter, Olivia, is a journalist and most recently a senior executive news producer. And finally, Joe is a recent graduate of the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, and is on the cusp of joining our great Army to pursue his dream of flying helicopters. Angie and I could not be more proud of our family, as they represent the resiliency, toughness, and service that make military kids so successful. While they are considered dependents because of me, the reality is I am dependent on them. And I would certainly not be here today if it was not for their support, sacrifice, and their service to our great nation. Thank you for allowing me to introduce them today. As the current Deputy Commander of U.S. Space Command, I know well the tremendous responsibilities levied upon this command and its incredible joint warfighters. As I reflect on the responsibilities of the new position for which I've been nominated, frankly, I'm amazed at where we are today. Just over a year ago, during General Raymond's nomination hearing, he testified of the great alignment in our nation with acknowledging space as a warfighting domain, just like land, air, sea, and cyber. Based on that alignment, we, as a nation, took bold steps towards protecting and defending our critical space capabilities by establishing U.S. Space Command and subsequently standing up the U.S. Space Force to better organize, train, and equip our space warfighters. As highlighted in the new Defense Space Strategy, we are now facing the most significant transformation in the history of U.S. national security space programs. The scope, scale, and complexity of the threats to our space capabilities are real and concerning. We no longer have the luxury of operating in a peaceful and benign environment, and we no longer have the luxury of assuming our access to and ability to leverage the space domain is a given. Although space is indeed a warfighting domain, our actual goal is to deter a conflict from extending into space. The best way I know how to prevent that from happening is be prepared to fight and win if deterrence were to fail. Today, we are the best in the world in space, and if confirmed, my job will be to make sure our advantage continues to grow well into the future. The source of our strength that will make this possible is and always will be our service members and civilians. They are without a doubt the best in the world at what they do. I'm truly humbled and honored to be considered to lead these great patriots. I take this obligation and responsibility very seriously, and I assure you that if confirmed, I will continue to uphold their sacred trust to the utmost of my ability. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, General. Chairman Inhofe has gone to the floor to vote. I'm going to present my statement, and then if Senator Hawley is still the ranking Republican and he's available, I'll ask him to ask his questions, and then we'll come back and alternate back both sides. But again, let me all thank you for having the flexibility to cooperate with us, not only in the midst of votes, but in the midst of a pandemic. So I appreciate that flexible spirit and can-do attitude. Let me begin by thanking the families of the nominees. General Vanherck, you are joined today by your wife, Marilyn, and you are the proud parents of Molly, who is married to Lieutenant Taylor Scott, a Navy pilot. General Dickinson, we welcome your family here today, your wife Angie, your daughter Deborah, and your husband Major Matt Weisner, an Army officer, your son Hank, and his wife Sarah, your daughter Olivia, and your son Joe. Thank you for all your service and the sacrifices as members of military families. It's very important to all of us. General Vanherck, if confirmed, your mission will be to protect the homeland, to deter and defeat attacks on the United States, and to support civil authorities in mitigating the effects of attacks and natural disasters. You will also serve as the commander of the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, which brings unique responsibilities and partnering opportunities with Canada to deter and defend against threats to our nation. As commander of NORTHCOM, you will be responsible for the operation of our Homeland Ballistic Missile Defense System, And I look forward to hearing your views on the department's plan to improve the ground-based missile defense system with an interim underlayer approach while we work towards developing and deploying the next generation interceptor. I would also like your assessment of where we stand with tracking and discrimination sensors, both ground and space-based, as well as the importance of developing defenses against complicated hypersonic threats. As you know, Northcom is leading the Defense Department's contributions to the federal response to the coronavirus pandemic. More than 31,000 military personnel are operating in support of COVID-19 operations in communities across the nation, while at the same time, more than 25,000 members of the military have been diagnosed with this virus since mid-March. If confirmed, you will take command as this crisis continues and as other needs from agencies may arise, particularly as we are now in the hurricane season. You will need to balance requests for support from civil authorities with the readiness and availability of our forces. Lastly, I remain concerned with the military utility of the ongoing deployment of active duty forces to our southern border and the impacts of diverting defense funds to build a wall. When we should be focusing on the challenges to our national security posed by near-peer adversaries like Russia and China, as directed by the National Defense Strategy, we are needlessly committing billions of DoD dollars in support of a wall that has no connection to a military threat and does not support military effectiveness. And now our military personnel continue to remain on the border while DHS is choosing to deploy its personnel, some of whom dressed in unmarked camouflage, to our own cities. I also continue to be concerned about the potential use of military forces in areas of civil unrest in this country. As Northcom commander, you would not direct this, but you would be responsible for the forces that are deployed. So I would expect you to keep utmost in your mind the proper role and focus of active duty forces in response to such events in our country. General Dickinson, you are well qualified to serve as the commander of U.S. Space Command, having recently served as the commander of the Army Space and Missile Defense Command. The U.S. Space Command was inactivated in 2002, and its responsibilities and forces were merged into U.S. Strategic Command. Then, after nearly 17 years, U.S. Space Command was reestablished last August. Since its original creation in 1985, there have been 9 commanders of U.S. Space Command, all from the Air Force. You will be the first commanding officer from a service other than the Air Force, although there are some of us who refer to it as the Army Air Corps, but we're very old. A little joke. I think this is important to point out because our combatant commands are joint commands. It is vital that the commands incorporate this perspective of all the services. The Army Space Operations Officers, known as the FA-40s, are highly prized and respected across the space community. They embed themselves within the Army's ground combat forces and are found often at the tip of the spear, using the power of space and information to enable a more effective warfighting force. I hope that your boots-on-the-ground perspective and experience will be imparted to this command. I'm interested in hearing your views on several topics. First, I would like to know how you will shape a joint warfighting operations plan, which is at the core of all combatant command. Second, during conflict in space, will you have direct tasking authority over the space assets the intelligence community controls? This issue is critical because there must be no ambiguity in the chain of command. Third, what steps will you take to ensure our missile warning mission is up to date to assess an attack on our homeland, especially a nuclear attack? As commander of SpaceCom, you will own a vitally important system of sensors that both Northcom and Stratcom rely upon to inform the President of whether our homeland is under attack. This mission is more vital today than it was 60 years ago, with the proliferation of long-range missiles, some of which do not follow a ballistic trajectory, by countries such as North Korea, China, Iran, and of course, Russia. Space Command is a sense of command, and the missile warning mission may be its most important one. Again, I thank both of you for your continued service and look forward to your testimony, and thank you all both. Now, at this point in terms, let me see, I'm getting instructions.
We're virtual, so you go to Senator Fisher, who's on WebEx.
I've been instructed that we're going to Senator Fisher, the ranking Republican, who's on WebEx. Senator Fisher, please.
Thank you, Senator Reid. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thank you for holding this hearing today on these very, very important confirmations. I'd like to begin by asking General Vanherck, your predecessor, General O'Shaughnessy, advocated for accelerating the schedule to deploy the next generation interceptor. In testimony before this committee in February, he stated, quote, "We cannot wait 10 years to get the next gen interceptor fielded. We are trying to bring that left," end quote. First, I'd ask, do you agree with that view? Do you think the capability needs to be deployed before 2030?
Senator, I do agree that we need to field the next generation capability quicker and as soon as possible.
And how concerned are you that with the contract still not being awarded, our ability to accomplish this schedule is diminishing?
Senator, I remain concerned, just as General O'Shaughnessy did. Last week, I discussed this with John Hill from the Missile Defense Agency. He's looking forward next month to receiving the request for proposals that come back. I understand that Northcom's #1 requirement was timing and sequencing of the next generation interceptor. So I'm optimistic, based on my discussions with John Hill, that we'll potentially see the next generation interceptor move further left and not have the significant gap that you're referring to.
I know that there are proposals to develop an interim capability that would be deployed prior to the NGI being fielded. A separate plans supplement our GMD system with an underlayer. Senator Reid referenced that. But these options also face their own schedule and budgetary challenges. What is your assessment of the trade-off of these options and the need for some additional capability prior to NGI's deployment?
Senator, my assessment is we do need to look at the current system service life extension. Again, in my conversations with John Hill last week from Missile Defense Agency, he gave me some great news that the service life extension, which Congress funded, thank you for that, is not only going to be an extension to the program, but is going to bring additional capabilities and also redundancy to the system. So I'm encouraged by that it would prevent any gap. With regards to the underlayer that you're talking about, I also talked to John about that. And there's a test upcoming the wintertime that'll take a look at some additional capabilities, a Navy capability and potentially an Army capability, specifically the SM-3 and the THAAD, that would give us an additional underlayer capability. That system is TBD. We need to see that test first. I'm encouraged and will continue to work with the committee, the Missile Defense Agency, and the department to minimize any gap.
Right. I think we all need to remember that some of those systems that you mentioned are regional. And when we look at the threats that we are facing within the next 10 years, I think we need to be better prepared. General, I also understand that what you can say here is limited in the unclassified environment that we are in, but can you briefly describe your level of concern about cruise missile threats to the homeland and our ability to defend against them?
Senator, thank you. Yes, it is concerning, and it would be a top priority if confirmed for me. I understand right now that there's an ongoing analysis of alternatives to take a look at that cruise missile threat. From a NORAD perspective, I look forward to working closely with our Canadian partners, looking to see that analysis of alternatives to get after the cruise missile threat. If confirmed, domain awareness will be a top priority. We have to be able to detect those threats. And so if you can't detect them, you certainly can't defeat them, and you can't deter them. So I would place that at the top of the priority list, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir. And General Dickinson, can you talk about the steps Space Command is taking to integrate with other geographic combatant commands and the importance with which you view this effort, given the lessons learned from the previous iteration of Space Command that was de-established in 2002.
Senator, I look at that integration between U.S. Space Command and the other 10 combatant commands as one of our most critical areas that we need to focus on. Our ability to integrate space capabilities throughout the world, throughout the geographic combatant commands is essential to our globally integrated effort warfighting capability. And we're taking steps right now to make sure that we have that capability. We have designed in the new U.S. Spacecom headquarters these integrated planning elements that we're already embedding within the combatant commands. Most notably, our first one we had was at U.S. STRATCOM, and we're following up with INDOPACOM, EUCOM, CENTCOM, and then the other combatant commanders. But our ability to integrate into those combatant command staffs is critical to make sure that we're providing those space capabilities that are needed by the joint warfighter.
Right. And have you only stood up a portion of those teams at this point?
Yes, Senator, we've stood up a portion of those. While those teams have several people, as you can imagine, on them, we do have 2 or 3 people in each of those locations. So we are growing that capability as we speak. And then we have the ability to reach back. So those individuals are able to reach back into Spacecom headquarters and be able to get the support that they may require.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator Reid.
Thank you very much, Senator Fisher. And it's my turn for questioning. And so let me begin with General Vanherck. From your experience on the Joint Staff, can you describe what are the key factors you're going to be looking at as you try to anticipate the response to COVID-19 that NORTHCOM will be making, not just now, but going forward? And then you could add into that hurricanes, you could add into a whole host of disruptive situations. And if you give us kind of a sense of your perspective, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Senator. With regards to anticipation, on a routine basis from my position as the director of the Joint Staff, we monitor the trends and the requirements across the states. And we see that today. You're certainly seeing trends, Texas, Florida, Mississippi, California, Arizona, et cetera, to anticipate the potential need for resources from DOD. With regards to going forward and looking in a hurricane season manner, I encourage that to tell you that we anticipated that from the Joint Staff and provided a plan order to United States Northern Command to take a look at how they would do defense support of civil authorities in this environment. And they came back with the planning estimate, commander's estimate, that gives how they would do command and control of a hurricane in a COVID environment. And so we have a level 2 base plan that was provided to NORTHCOM that is on the shelf and ready to go in the case of a hurricane or another defense support to civil authorities. If confirmed, I look forward to getting into NORTHCOM and hopefully not putting that into place, but continuing to anticipate the future.
Thank you. Let me shift to your colleague, General Dickinson, and then back to you if time allows. General Dickinson, one of the perennial issues is authority over the intelligence community and space assets. Could you give us an idea whether you will have tasking authority over these assets, particularly in a time of conflict and crisis?
So, Senator, I would start off by categorizing our relationship, for example, with the National Reconnaissance Office that I've been able to observe since I took this job as the Deputy Commander at U.S. Spacecom. And I would characterize that, Senator, as the best it's ever been in terms of our ability to work with the NRO. We have them embedded in our operations centers out in Colorado Springs. We operate with them every day. We train with them. We exercise with them. And we're building our operational plans together to ensure that we're able to do the missions that we need to together. We've had some recent activity that's brought us even closer in terms of being able to work together. In terms specifically with regards to your question about tasking authority, we do have a series of exercises that we're working through right now that will help us get after what I just described in terms of being able to work with them to provide that warfighting focus that they need to operate.
Well, thank you, General. Again, returning back to General Vanherck, what's your assessment of the next generation interceptor? Are we assuming too much risk in the situation we are right now with the interceptor?
Senator, my understanding is that United States Northern Command General O'Shaughnessy worked closely with the Missile Defense Agency and the Department in the development of the requirements for the next generation interceptor. Those requirements are my understanding is more than capable of accomplishing the mission that we need in the future. If confirmed, I'll continue to work that closely with the intelligence community, with the department, to ensure there's no capability lapse for the next generation interceptor, sir.
Thank you. One of the issues is not just the platform we have, but the threat we face. And I think we're all much more sensitive now to hypersonic vehicles, to non-ballistic missiles that could be streaking into our area of operation. That must certainly heighten the kind of consequences and potential dangers. Is that accurate?
Senator, I share your concern as well, and I would say that is accurate. Specific to hypersonics, they create unique challenges going forward. Again, talking with John Hill, I'm very delighted to see they're working on hypersonics going forward. It creates unique challenges for the threat warning and attack assessment capability, sir.
Well, I was going to ask the question to General Dickinson why it's so important for him being an Army officer to have this job, but since that's obvious, I will refrain from asking the question, and I will recognize Senator Brown.
The ranking member once again shows his wisdom.
Thank you.
General Dickinson and General Vanherck, first of all, thank you and your families for decades of service to our nation. Last week when we spoke, in separate conversations, both of you mentioned the topics of Spacecom, Cybercom integration and Spacecom, Northcom integration. I wonder if you could take this opportunity to briefly discuss why these relationships are so important. And if you could, in whichever order you would like, I think it's important to talk about the interactions between those three.
Senator, thank you. You're absolutely correct. Those relationships are vitally important. From a Northcom perspective, reliant for indications of attack assessment with Spacecom, as well as supporting from a cyber perspective, defensive capabilities. So I talked to General Nakasone as well. So really look forward to partnering with both General Nakasone and, if confirmed, General Dickinson to continue on a path to ensure success. I understand that the relationships between not only Cybercom and Spacecom and Northcom, but all the combatant commands are vitally important today with the global threat that we have each and every day. Look forward to that if confirmed.
Thank you.
Senator, Cybercom, Spacecom relationship, very important, critical to what we do each and every day. We both have a supporting and a supported role in each other's operations. We're getting after that, if you will, in terms of integration through putting one of our integrated planning elements from U.S. Spacecom into U.S. Cybercom, and then actually the reverse. So U.S. Cybercom putting an integrated planning element within U.S. Spacecom. This will help us in our efforts to make sure that as we stand up U.S. Space Command, that we are implementing the cyber protection, cyber capabilities that we need to right from the very beginning. So if you will, a clean sheet of paper as we put U.S. Spacecom together, and we're going to be able to do that starting out at the ground floor by this relationship. And it's critical. And as General Vanherck said, critical to all the other combatant commands as well, but in particular for Spacecom and Cybercom, where you have two domains where you don't necessarily are able to see what's going on in each of those domains. So our ability to work together is critical.
I agree, and I just think it used to be we talked about air, land, and sea, and now we clearly have to talk about space and cyberspace. And without all five of them protected and coordinated together, we're in trouble. And so I appreciate the fact that both of you recognize it and want to continue to improve it. General Dickinson, when we talked last week, we discussed the article that recently was written by retired Admiral Dennis Blair and former Deputy Secretary of Defense Robert Work concerning the problem of overclassification of space information. They had argued rather persuasively that overclassification results in the duplication of space systems, the lack of integration of space capabilities and training, and ignorance of specific space threats among our operational forces. Can you discuss your thoughts on this issue with this committee? And I recognize that we're not in a closed-door session, but just in terms of the importance of reviewing the classifications with regard to space.
Senator, that is a very important process that we need to do routinely. And so in my previous job as a commander of U.S. Army Space and Missile Defense Command, I saw firsthand how that overclassification, if you will, was actually making it more difficult for us to actually provide support to the warfighter. And so we have to look at that, and I read the same article, Senator, and I would tell you that we have come a long ways in a short period of time in terms of that particular effort. We have looked at that in the DoD in my last job very extensively, and we've already seen in the U.S. Army how that declassification, if you will, of some of the assets that we have has added to not only more soldiers being able to be trained and qualified on that capability, but providing that capability to the warfighter on the ground.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Manchin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for your service. Thank you for being here. General Vanherck, we spoke about ensuring Northern Command's training operations are efficient as possible. An important part of that process will include smaller scale training exercises which allow for centralized planning, decentralized execution. We talked about this yesterday, so if you could share with us, while I know that we are in agreement on the issue, could you share your opinions on how best to maximize the efficiency of training operations in these unique and challenging times?
Thank you, Senator. Enjoyed the discussion. Yes, training opportunities are crucial, not only the Tier 1 large exercises, but exercises at all levels.
Sure.
Today, we have to be as efficient and as effective as possible with each and every training dollar that are given. And so we should look continuously at training opportunities that maximize the dollars that, that Congress gives us, that taxpayers expect. I look forward to, if confirmed, working with you to take a look at potential opportunities for efficiency and effectiveness in training.
The National Guard is not the National Guard of our fathers, is it?
I'm sorry, sir.
The National Guard is not the National Guard that our fathers or grandfathers knew.
Absolutely. I concur with you 100%. Today's National Guard is in with us each and every day, and there has to be training opportunities for the National Guard.
Thank you, sir. And General Dickinson, in the past few months, we've seen concerning signs of offensive capabilities and tensions in space from our adversaries. This includes Russia's testing anti-satellite weapons last week, Iran launching a military satellite into orbit in April, and China launching 3 imaging satellites over the course of 3 days last month. While these 3 examples vary in severity, there is no question that they are signs of our adversaries successful, improving, and investing in their space programs. So what are your strategies for ensuring that Space Command responds to adversaries challenging U.S. dominance in space, while also avoiding perpetuating any further weaponization of space?
Senator, I think 2 parts to that I would answer. First is that we have to hold our competitors accountable for their actions in space. And that has actually been one of the major functions or achievements, in my words, in my opinion, the first year, like 11 months of U.S. Spacecom being in existence, is we have the professionals now that are looking at that each and every day, using our space domain awareness capabilities to understand what our competitors are doing in space.
Do you have good good communications between our adversaries who are basically really going into space and going at it with the gusto, that you have good communications to let them know what's the protocol or what we will accept, what we won't accept, or are we the gatekeeper?
So, Senator, that is actually an area that we're working on very hard right now, is establishing what we would call norms of behavior in the space domain. And so we have seen this in other domains, for example, the maritime domain, where it took us some time to establish what the norms of behavior are, what are the acceptable practices in that domain. So we're working that, and by holding our competitors accountable, we are starting to begin to establish what we would consider the norms of behavior are in space.
Us to establish any type of authority has to be through some superiority, don't you think? Our
sorry, Senator.
Our superiority in space is the only way we're going to get any of their attentions, probably to work with us or to allow us to set those norms.
Senator, I think from our deterrence position, we deter by a position of strength. And as I said in my opening statement, we are the best in space.
Thank you, sir. General Vanherck, one final one. I had the pleasure of speaking with you yesterday, and we touched upon the importance, oh no, that's the wrong one. In the past few months, we've seen concerning signs of offensive capabilities and intentions. I gotta get this right. Oh, here it is. We're seeing steadily increasing aggression from Russia and a growing interest from China in the region of the Arctic. I think we spoke briefly about that yesterday. Could you give an outline of some of your top priorities to counter the conventional and unconventional threats that we're likely to face from both countries in that region?
Sure, Senator. Thank you. The changes in the environment have allowed more access to the Arctic. With the vast amount of resources, certainly there will be competition for those resources, whether they be oil or minerals. Both Russia and China are very interested in the Arctic. With regards to what the NORTHCOM perspective would be if confirmed, is persistence. We need persistence and domain awareness in the Arctic to ensure that we're aware and able to detect, monitor, and if needed, deter.
Can you speak about the partnership that we see going on between China and Russia, partnerships in the Arctic, and are our allies as concerned as we are about deterring that?
Senator, I'm not aware of specific partnership with China and Russia in the Arctic. I assure you that our allies and partners are concerned about China's activities and Russia's activities in the Arctic.
I look forward to talking to you more about that. And we just did a trip in the Arctic, and it was very interesting in hearing from the Arctic nations up there, their concerns and what activities they're seeing now.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. With the going back and forth and voting with the two votes, I did my opening statements, but I had two questions I was going to ask in the beginning. Now, if they've already been asked while I was out voting, you can just skip that over. And what that would be, first of all, General Vanherck, from the opening statement, you mentioned your support for the National Defense Strategy. That's this document here that we all are adhering to, and the defense of our homeland being the #1 priority. You also mentioned that threats to the homeland are here now. So can you expand a bit on the strategic environment that you would expect to face when you're confirmed as NORTHCOM? Or have you already responded to that question?
Senator, I have not.
All right.
Sure. If confirmed, I would expect a very dynamic environment. Over 32 years of service, I don't think I've ever seen a strategic and dynamic of a national security challenge that we have today. Over the last 3 decades, our competitors and potential adversaries have watched the United States and our way of deterring, our way of competing, and our way in conflict. They have taken the opportunity to adapt to that environment by watching us, specifically China and Russia, across all domains. Russia develops strategic capabilities such as their submarines, which now are a significant challenge for tracking and pose the potential for cruise missiles that can strike the homeland. China will do the same in the not too distant future as they continue to develop their capabilities and become more expeditionary. Russia will continue with their cruise missile development, which is a significant challenge that we talked about earlier as well. DPRK with the nuclear capability and the potential to strike the homeland. Iran, although not having a nuclear capability at this time, continues down a path developing space capability, which could translate into an ICBM capability, and of course, they're state sponsors of terrorism. And their proxies will continue attacks on the Western nations as well. Couple that with the VEO and also transnational criminal organizations, I expect a full challenge if confirmed as the NORTHCOM commander, sir.
Good. Very good. And General Dickinson, the National Defense Strategy and Great Power Competition, in your view, does the 2018 NDS accurately assess the current strategic environment as it pertains to the domain of space?
Senator, I think it does. And when I look across the spectrum of competitors that we're looking at today, in particular, two of them, China and Russia, are very active. We've seen that over the last few years, particularly with China in 2007 with their anti-direct descent anti-satellite capability tests that they had demonstrated their proliferation of jammers and directed energy. Similarly, Russia has been in the news the last couple of weeks, actually the last few months, in terms of what they're doing on orbit in terms of advancing their capabilities. North Korea, and in particular, again, not advancing quickly in the space domain, but is definitely using that in terms of developing missile technology, and likewise with Iran, their ability to put satellites into orbit, albeit not as capable, still able to demonstrate that missile technology to do that. So, Senator, Chairman, I would just tell you that they are active, and I agree with the NDS.
Yes, thank you very much. Senator Shaheen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Vanherck, as you know, this administration has attempted to divert billions in funding for Department of Defense counter-drug activities, including monies that have been dedicated to the Joint Task Force North counter-narcotics mission for the construction of a border wall. Commander O'Shaughnessy, when he was before this committee, stated that he recommended to the Secretary that counter-drug mission funding not be diverted to border wall construction. Would you agree that this funding should remain dedicated to the NORTHCOM counter-narcotics mission?
Senator, thank you. I would have to go to the border and assess, if confirmed, to make a rational judgment at this time. In general, I would support and say that counter-narcotics funding is crucial to the mission, but again, I have not been to the border to make that assessment.
Well, can you comment on any ways that you think that NORTHCOM counter-narcotics mission can be improved or modernized or be more effective than it currently is to disrupt drug trafficking by transnational criminal organizations?
Senator, my understanding is that the NORTHCOM mission is in support of the Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security has capability gaps right now. The NORTHCOM mission is in support through operational support, infrastructure support, aviation support, and detection and monitoring. If confirmed, I commit to go to the border quickly and make an assessment of that mission and provide candid and honest feedback when appropriate.
Thank you. I appreciate that. As you know, and as has been referred to, obviously, NORTHCOM includes the Arctic. And can you speak to your plans to continue the research that's been undertaken in engineering new technologies for cold weather adaptability? You may know that the Cold Regions Lab, the Army's Cold Regions Lab, is in Hanover, New Hampshire, and it provides a lot of research and is capabilities that the Army can then use. And as we're looking at a situation where we really haven't had a major northern conflict since the Korean War, how important it is to have that kind of research and adaptability that can be used by our services.
Senator, that is incredibly important. As I mentioned earlier, persistence is what's crucial in the Arctic. And to have persistence, you have to be equipped and trained and capable and have the equipment to do that. If confirmed, I commit to you that I'll continue to look in that. That's really a service perspective on the development. I'd work closely with any of the service chiefs to ensure that the equipment for any forces allocated or assigned to NORTHCOM have what they need to compete and deter in the Arctic.
Well, thank you. We hope that you will also come and visit the Cold Regions Lab in Hanover and see exactly what their capabilities are. I think you'll find the research they do there is going to be of great importance.
Senator, if confirmed, I look forward to that.
Thank you. General Dickinson, can you talk about how you envision the National Guard and Reserve as you think about how we use their skill sets in both Space Command and in maintaining our superiority in the space domain?
Senator, I think the reserve component, in particular for space, is incredibly important. My experience in my last job as the U.S. Army Space and Missile Defense Command commander I was very impressed with the reserve component contributions to the Army space mission. Those same professionals are supporting U.S. Space Command now, and they are so important to our mission that we can't do that every day unless we have them. And I see that only getting stronger and more of a part of our command as we continue to mature. I do know there is some work going on in the department now to look at what the future might be for that. But what I can speak about today is the fact that we have National Guardsmen and reservists, both from the Air Force and from the Army right now, performing space missions in support of U.S. Space Command.
Thank you. I hope that will continue, and you will continue to evaluate how they can contribute to the mission. As I'm sure you're aware, a number of our commercial and military satellites are proliferating, and the tracking of those objects has become increasingly important. Right now, the Air Force is playing this role at the federal level, but as I'm sure you're aware, there's discussion about moving some of these responsibilities to the Department of Commerce. As the ranking member of the Commerce, Justice, and Science Appropriations Subcommittee, I, along with Chairman Moran, have requested additional information about what moving this operation from DOD to the Department of Commerce would entail, how many personnel, what other changes would be required. We haven't yet received an answer to our request, even though it's been a number of months. Can you talk about what concerns you might have about moving those capabilities from DOD to the Department of Commerce, if any, or do you think this is a great idea?
Senator, so my opinion is that I think it is a good idea. I think it's the future and where we need to move. That is, as you mentioned, the space domain is becoming much more cluttered, populated, if you will, with the proliferation of satellites, technology, and debris for that matter. And so I think as we move forward, in order to make sure that we do it the most efficient and safe in the most safest manner, is that we should look towards that. And if confirmed, I would look forward to working that particular issue with you and your committee.
Well, thank you. My time is up, but I think we would like to get back to you on what you think will be required in order to do that successfully. Thanks very much, Mr.
Senator
Chairman.
Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank both of you for being here, and thank you both as well for very interesting phone conversations, or I guess we met in person in your cases, and grateful for that. I was encouraged by it, quite honestly. And so I probably have more questions than time, but we'll submit the rest for later. I wanted to follow up, General Vanherck, with our discussion about over-the-horizon radar. As I think I mentioned to you, the lab, the Air Force lab, and NORAD, I think, did a NORTHCOM did a test in North Dakota at Camp Grafton, which is a National Guard camp and facility. And our feedback was that the results were far extended, actually, or far exceeded the expectations. And I'd just be interested in your knowledge of over-the-horizon radar, what you see coming, if anything, and how you think it might play out.
Sure, Senator. Anything that enhances our capability for domain awareness is going to be crucial. specifically with regards to ballistic missile and cruise missile capabilities, a longer range, and to keep an eye on what may be going on over the Arctic and beyond. Specific to the test, I don't have the details. I'll get those from AFRL if confirmed. But specific, we're looking for further discrimination, especially with ballistic missiles as they get more advanced and the technology with debris and decoy kind of information would be crucial, and any of those radar capabilities would help us with that.
As long as we're on the topic of radar, maybe I'll throw one out that both of you could weigh in on. We talked about the radar station at Cavalier that is a Space Force station now, and has been there since the 1970s. It looks its age, but I'm wondering about the data that's collected there. Is it still relevant, and is there more that can be done in terms of modernizing the space station at Cavalier for awareness? And yeah, we could start with General.
So, Senator, the data that comes from that is absolutely critical to our missile warning architecture that we have throughout the North America as well as the rest of the world. In terms of the age of the radar and those types of things, I can speak from a position of U.S. Spacecom, if confirmed, that I would take a look at those capabilities and put the demand or the requirements to the U.S. Space Force and work with General Raymond on improving if that's what we need to do.
So that leads to what I wasn't planning to be the follow-up to that, but it makes perfect sense. Since we got that at Cavalier and we're still waiting for results and to see just how specific and how clear images can be from over the horizon radar, the northern tier becomes important. We've talked a little bit about the Arctic, but there's not a lot between Minnesota and, or Michigan and say Montana, and except North Dakota and some other important states. But what I'm sort of wondering about is, as it relates to the Arctic itself, and should an attack come from, over Saskatchewan or Manitoba, are we prepared for that? Do we have the right equipment? Do we have enough tankers and bombers and response weapons if something like that should happen? And maybe, General Vanherck, you'd be the logical.
Senator, my understanding is that the current ballistic missile defense system is capable of defending against the intended threat that we have today. With regards to bombers and additional threats, the cruise missile threat certainly is a concern, and that would be a top priority if confirmed for me, and domain awareness. It goes back to your radar question, having awareness of what is coming over the horizon. So if confirmed, I'd look forward to partnering with you and the committee to ensure we get after that threat.
Before my time runs out, I do want to associate myself with some of the issues raised by Senator Shaheen with regard to a garden, and I know that there's a process for doing that, and I think a deliberative process, slow process. Doesn't have to be done the way it's always been done, let's just say that. And so with regard to space, I appreciate that. The only other thing I'd bring up at this point is with General Dickinson. When General Raymond did visit Grand Forks and the University of North Dakota in January, just after being named chief, he told the University of North Dakota they'd be a great fit for a space-related UARC, University-affiliated research centers. Since then, we know that it's changed from a consortium of schools to a competition for a school or group of schools, and the process has slowed down. So as we understand, it's going to be Space Command, not Space Force, that would actually run the UARC. So how do you envision a space UARC coming together? And I asked that question also with the statement that we sure hope that UND is very seriously considered and a partner.
Senator, that is a program, as the deputy at U.S. Space Command right now, that is a program that we're actively looking at right now. We understand the value, the absolute value of having a UARC as part of that. In my previous assignment, I was Chief of Staff at U.S. Stratcom, where we leveraged the UARC very well within that combatant command. And as we stand up U.S. Space Command, we're looking at the best practices right now across the other combatant commands in the department to see how best to stand that up to meet the needs that we're going to have. And I envision over the next 9 months or so that we'll have that program will come together in a formal way.
I appreciate that. And just close by just, again, reminding you that we are a northern tier state with important assets, academic and talent and others, as well as well-positioned to both defend the Arctic and play a role in space. And with that, I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for your service and to your families as well, and thank you for being here today. Lieutenant General Vanherck, at the time that you're testifying here today, Attorney General Barr is testifying before a House committee, the Judiciary Committee, on the use of federal policing forces against protesters in Oregon and elsewhere in the country. The question of the use of military force has also been raised. In fact, the President has raised it as a possibility. Would you agree with me that the American military should never be used to suppress First Amendment free expression?
Senator, what I would say is the American military should be the absolute last resort to be utilized in any case. The first utilization should occur from local authorities, then state and federal law enforcement. But the Constitution, the law allows for the use of forces if required, but it would be the absolute last resort.
But not to suppress First Amendment rights, because wouldn't you agree that would be an illegal order if it were issued to you?
Senator, I fully support protests of the First Amendment type, exactly as you stated. There should be freedom to your First Amendment at any time. What concerns me is protests that turn violent, and those concern me significantly. We can't have that in the nation. We have to have abide by laws, and so a last resort would be the use of the military.
And I agree with you that violence and lawbreaking that involves a threat of physical injury is to be deterred and to be prosecuted when it violates the law. But how would you decide whether military force is in fact needed, if ever, as a last resort to protect individual rights, as was done, for example, in the South at the time of desegregation, as has been done elsewhere? But I have submitted a proposed legislation, it's called the Civil Act, that would essentially make the President certify or report, explain to Congress why and whether troops are necessary. Right now, he can send troops abroad, and he must report back to Congress under the War Powers Act. He's accountable to Congress, specifically by statute. There's no such requirement if he uses American troops against American citizens. How would you decide by what criteria whether force is necessary? And would you support legislation that would require some accountability to Congress?
Senator, my understanding is that if confirmed as the commander of NORTHCOM, it would not be my decision to make the use of force decision. That would come from the President to the Secretary of Defense as a direction. What I can assure you is if I felt I was being given an illegal, immoral, or unethical order, that I am obligated to not follow that order. With regards to your second question about supporting legislation, I'm going to stay out of the policy aspect of that. If that law is enacted, Senator, I will support it 100%.
And let me ask you finally, you're familiar with what was done in Lafayette Park, correct?
I am.
Are those National Guard troops within your purview?
Senator, are you talking about in my current job or if confirmed a future job? And the answer is really neither.
Right.
Those National Guard troops were not allocated or assigned to U.S. NORTHCOM, is my understanding.
What about the use of Air Force or Air National Guard assets potentially over Oregon. I don't know whether you've seen the report that there was some form of surveillance in the use of an Air Force plane.
Senator, I'm aware of that report. What I understood was it was a test mission that the United States Air Force had scheduled months in advance. It happened to coincide and was noticed, but there was no mission assignment to support anything on the ground in Oregon.
And let me just ask you finally, will you commit as the commander of NORTHCOM that you would report to us if asked about the use of any military force involving American citizens, as we've been discussing?
To make sure I understand your question, are you talking about the proposal you have to enact?
No, let me rephrase it. I'm sorry, I was unclear. Would you report to us about the use of military force against American citizens in any incident after it occurred?
Senator, I'll answer that in two parts. First, if directed and a lawful order to execute with military force, I will follow that. If this committee would like to discuss that, absolutely, I would come to discuss that.
Thank you.
Thanks
very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and gentlemen, congratulations on your nominations, and thank you for your decades of service to our nation. General Vanherck, I want to talk a lot about your responsibility as the in this important position with regard to your responsibilities overseeing the Arctic. I've been in the Senate 5.5 years. We've made very significant progress on focusing on this, not because the Pentagon's been focused on it, it's been primarily this committee, bipartisan way. We started, the previous NORTHCOM commander, when I was here, wasn't that focused on the Arctic at all. It's got increasingly better. General O'Shaughnessy has been fantastic. So can you give me your sense of, the great power competition that is occurring in the Arctic and what we need to do? I think we're unfortunately way behind, but the Congress of the United States has been really pressing this issue to get the Pentagon to wake up. And I think the Pentagon is finally waking up. I give a lot of credit to General O'Shaughnessy, Secretary of the Air Force, you may have seen, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to submit this for the record. The new Department of the Air Force Arctic Strategy came out last week as a really good document. Again, 5.5 years ago, the Obama administration Arctic Strategy in this hearing, in this committee, I referred to as a joke, because it was 13 pages, 6 of which were pictures. Climate change was mentioned like 6 or 7 times, and Russia was mentioned once in a footnote, and China wasn't even mentioned. So it's a changing situation now. Can you give me your views, and then I'd like to ask some specific issues with regard to the Arctic.
Without objection, that'll be made a part of the record at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. I see tremendous value in the Arctic. Specifically, if confirmed, what I would focus on is enabling persistence. And I'm encouraged by the strategy that you talked about from the Air Force. I have read it. I think it is a great step in the right direction. China and Russia, as you asked about, tremendous resources in the Arctic. Russia specifically, using militarization, taking approximately a dozen or so bases and either reopening or opening to have significant influence in the Arctic. China calls himself a near Arctic nation, which I find hard to believe, but they do. But certainly they want to have persistence in the Arctic as well. That demands persistence out of the United States as well, in my mind. And to do that would require some capabilities. I understand that General O'Shaughnessy and NORTHCOM have a requirement for fuel north of Dutch Harbor. That could enable some additional capabilities for persistence. Communications will be a significant challenge. I understand that's the #1 priority for General O'Shaughnessy right now.
We have about a third of that requirement in the NDAA this year, so we're making progress there too.
Yes, and so we sincerely appreciate that, Senator. That is crucial above in the northern latitudes. Communication allows command and control as well. And to deter and defend, you have to be able to command and control the forces. And so you have to have the infrastructure to support that.
Let me ask about infrastructure, General. Just again, this week, hardly a week goes by without a new media, an article or something in the press about the Arctic. Pompeo says U.S. to expand Arctic role to deter Russia and China. That was in the Washington Post 2 days ago. Yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, there was a huge article, huge. China's move to buy Arctic gold mine draws fire in Canada as world powers seek dominance in the Arctic region. Opponents of purchase say blocking deal is in Canadians' national interest. You're going to be working closely with the Canadians, as you mentioned in your opening statement on this. And then the president, just a month ago, put out from him the memorandum on safeguarding U.S. national interests in the Arctic and Antarctic regions. I'd like to submit this for the record, Mr. Chairman. But what the president is asking you, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, Secretary of Homeland Security, is look at that issue of infrastructure. His memo says we need more icebreakers and we need a presence of at least 2 U.S. basing locations for these new icebreakers. Do you think it would make sense to put one of those basing locations in the part of America that actually is the Arctic?
Senator, I do think it makes sense. And if confirmed, I'd continue to work with you in this committee to ensure that we get after that.
Great. Thank you, General. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Hirono.
Chairman, I ask every nominee on any of the committees on which I sit the following 2 questions, so I'll ask you gentlemen the following 2 questions. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature? I'll start with you, General Vanherck.
No, Senator.
General Dickinson?
No, Senator.
Second question, have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
Thank you. You've been asked, this is for General Vanherck, you've been asked a number of questions. So should you be confirmed to the position, NORTHCOM Commander, some questions along the lines of involvement in civilian protests. So in recent weeks, we have seen disturbing levels of violence used against American citizens exercising their right to protest. Assuming that you are confirmed, what kind of training will the forces under your purview get to deal with nonviolent protesters if they are called up?
Senator, if forces are called to be utilized, they would get training on the standing rules for the use of force and any training that would involve being in close proximity or with civilians.
So is there any kind of training that you are aware of that deals with the civilian nonviolent protesters, such as de-escalation training? Do you think there should be specialized training for forces that are used to dealing in the military context when they are in a civilian context?
Senator, I do believe that if anybody from the military is going to be put into that situation, that we as senior leaders owe them the proper training. What I would tell you is if I am confirmed and if put into that situation, I will ensure 100% that anybody put into that situation will have the proper training before they are put in there.
So it would seem that you would be able to give me a commitment that you will do everything possible in your role as a NORTHCOM commander to ensure that forces under your purview do not violate the rights of American citizens when providing support to civilian authorities.
Senator, I commit to you, if confirmed, and put into that position where forces are going to be put in proximity to support either a federal agency or via an act where they are in charge, that they will get the most training possible before they get put into that situation.
And while you said that the decision will ultimately be made by the president, as a commander, I think you have some responsibility to make your own decisions. For example, General Milley apologized for his presence at Lafayette Square during that photo op of the president. So he was exercising his own judgment, and you may be called upon to exercise your own judgment to come through with the commitment that you are making today. You were asked about the importance of the National Guard and providing support to Spacecom, and this is for General Dickinson. Senator Shaheen, rather, had asked you some questions, and I just wanted to note that this year it was announced that the Hawaii Air National Guard has been selected to have one of 4 national offensive space control squadrons, and I understand that the Hawaii Air National Guard is in the process of establishing the 293rd Space Control Squad based at the Pacific Missile Range facility on Kauai. So thank you very much for acknowledging the importance of their role in Spacecom, General Dickinson. That's not a question. I do have a question for you, General Dickinson. We know that you're going to need a lot of qualified people, mainly with STEM backgrounds, as we set up Spacecom. And given the competition for talent across the STEM and cyber communities, how will you work with the military services to ensure that Spacecom has the technical experts needed to perform mission in the space domain? And what will you do to attract minorities, including women, to service in Spacecom?
Senator, that's the question is one of talent management, is I think what you asked me, and how are we going to attract good talent from the STEM curriculum into the United States Space Command. And my overall assessment, being the deputy for about 6 or 7 months now, and in my former job at U.S. Army Space and Missile Defense Command, is we've got tremendous interest from our young population wanting to come and be a part of the space enterprise, whether it's commercial, civil, or in this case, military. And so our ability to attract young talent, I think we've got a lot of people that want to come serve, and a lot of young adults that want to serve their nation in this capacity. So I'm encouraged by the numbers of people that are interested in doing that. And I think we, as a department, and if confirmed as the U.S. Spacecom commander, is that we need to have mechanisms in place that will attract that young talent. In my last job, we had a very robust scholarship program and opportunity for internships out of some of our universities across the country. And I would look to expand that so that we can maintain that knowledge base and that expertise within the command.
I hope that you will make concerted efforts to encourage minorities, which include women, to seek jobs in Spacecom, because there's certainly a lack of encouragement for minorities and women in the STEM area. So I hope you will have a focused effort to encourage those folks to work with you.
Thank you, Senator Rono. Senator Cotton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for your appearance, and congratulations on your nomination. General Vanherck, I want to speak about the nuclear threat facing the American people. Our lead negotiator for the New START Treaty, Marshall Billingsley, has warned that China is in the midst of what he calls an alarming crash nuclear buildup. We also have significant flaw in the existing New START regime in that it does not capture Russia's significant advantage in what are variously called low-yield, tactical, or battlefield nuclear weapons. I don't see much difference between tactical and strategic nuclear weapons, since both are devastating. As the Northern Command commander, you will have the Homeland Aerospace Defense Mission. And so from a military standpoint, do these twin threats concern you? Are you worried about the risk of nuclear overmatch when Russia and China's forces are combined against the United States?
Senator, I'm confident, and I've talked to Admiral Richard, with our deterrent capability today, that we can deter both China and Russia. With regards to the New START, specifically entering into a treaty that would put us at a disadvantage with one or the other, that would have to be something that I would have to really take a look at. I would be concerned about that, Senator.
General, I'm confident in our ability to deter that threat today as well. But what about in the next 5 to 10 year period? Are you concerned that what Mr. Billingsley refers to, the crashed nuclear buildup in China, could put us in a position in the near future where we face a combined nuclear force of China and Russia that is greater than ours, and therefore that we cannot effectively deter?
Senator, I need to get smarter on that, to be honest with you, but right now, I understand that our deterrence has the capability to deter both. Now, with that being said, I am concerned with what I see about China, their rapid buildup and their change of strategy with their nuclear weapons. If confirmed, I commit to you to work with you in this committee and the intelligence community to continue to monitor that. If I ever felt that there was overmatch, then I'm going to speak as loud as anybody in the room, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it, General. General Dickinson, Russia has just announced that it will deploy hypersonic nuclear strike weapons with its Navy. I know that hypersonics are already a top priority for the Department of Defense, yet we currently have only minimal capability to detect these weapons throughout most of their very short flight profile. Do you believe a space-based sensor layer is one of the most critical capabilities the department needs to detect and track hypersonics?
Senator, in my opinion, yes, we need to have a space-based warning or detection capability. That is absolutely critical to solve this problem with hypersonics. Our ability to see that threat early in the sequence or in the kill chain of that is absolutely critical to our success in defeating it. So I would look, if confirmed, to advocate for that capability in terms of building out a space-based sensor layer.
Do you believe that Congress is sufficiently funding development of that capability at present?
Senator, my understanding is I believe it is at this point.
When you testify in the future and senators imply that they're ready to give you more money, you should always say that you take it if you can get it.
If confirmed, Senator, I would advocate for that.
All right, gentlemen, thank you again for your appearance today. Congratulations on your nomination. Mr. Chairman, I will yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. Senator Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These witnesses, I think, are very, very qualified for the positions for which they've been nominated, and I applaud you for your service. I have a plea that's really more of a plea for the committee, and then I have a question for each of you. And the plea for the committee is sort of I'm just going to state it as heartfelt as I can. I believe that this committee did really, really good work on the National Defense Authorizing Act, and it passed by an 86-14 vote. And I think the chair and ranking did superb work with the staff in helping pull it together. It contains everything. It's 1,160 pages. It's troop pay raises, and it's protection for military families, and it's shipbuilding and ship repair, and it's strategic advances on issues that my colleague Senator Cotton raised about Huawei. It is a very complex bill, and the chair and ranking did a wonderful job with the committee, and then they did a wonderful job on the floor, and there were dozens and dozens and dozens of amendments added by not only Armed Services Committee members, but members who are not on the committee. That's to their credit. A similar bill passed the House with over a 2/3 vote. I don't believe everything I read in the newspaper or tweets, but I was discouraged this weekend when I read that because President Trump does not like one part of the bill, a bill that establishes a process for renaming military bases currently named after Confederates, and 3 of those bases are in Virginia. I voted for the provision to establish the renaming process, but because he does not like one piece of the bill, there's some consideration being given to either removing that, even though it was in both sides, both the House and the Senate's bills, or delaying getting the bill to him for that reason. I just want to plea that we not let bases named for Confederate generals and the issue of those names become the dominating important issue that would bog down a very good defense authorizing bill for 3 reasons. Number one, the priorities in the bill, pay raises, shipbuilding, our nuclear deterrence, are vastly, vastly more important than the Confederate naming provision, regardless of how you feel about the provision or how people voted on it. Number two, This is the single most important piece of legislation I work on any year in the Senate. And I would venture to say the members of the committee probably feel the same way. And for a place like Virginia, where I've got the Pentagon, the largest concentration of sort of military administrative power in the world, Quantico, where every Marine officer is trained, Norfolk, the largest seat of naval power in the world. This is the bill. The NDA is the bill where I have my entire communities asking me, what's going to be for the pay raise? What are you doing for military families? They are on the edge of their seats every year about this bill, and they want to know what's in it. And then when it passes, I put out a press release stating what's in it, and then communities start to plan around it. President Trump tweeted out over the weekend that he was assured that the Confederate provision would somehow be removed. That puts uncertainty into all of the things that I've mentioned to people in Virginia about this bill. I don't think we should inject uncertainty over the good priorities in this bill over an issue that is more minor import. And finally, the other reason that I would just urge us not to let the Confederate issue wag the dog in this case is this committee is the only place in the Senate where I think we do this right. I hold this committee up all the time. I've had 2 Republican chairmen and 1 Democratic chairman in my 8 years in the Senate. It's the one part of the Senate that I actually think works, where the chairman and ranking are open to letting every member offer amendments and get them voted up or down, and only when there are none left to offer do we declare it done. And then on the floor, the chair and ranking work assiduously with members of both parties to clear as many amendments as possible. I hold this up in all my other committees. Why can't we do it this way? Why can't we do it like the Armed Services Committee does? And I would hate to see that in the very predictable instance where we might see an issue different than President Obama wanted to pull out funding for the refueling of a carrier, but we didn't let that stop us. We thought differently and we did it. And there have been things where we've disagreed with President Trump on. That's what we do. But we shouldn't be playing Mother May I with the president. We should do what we're going to do, and then we should let the president do what the president's going to do. But I don't think we should let a minor issue dominate and slow down this bill. So that is my earnest plea of my colleagues and of the Senate and of the conferees. My question is this. Our chair and ranking did a good job during the month of April when we were quarantined in keeping us informed about how the DOD is dealing with the coronavirus issue. We had a weekly call and we were digging into it. But because of the outbreak on the Roosevelt, a lot of the discussion was about that. Should you each be confirmed in your positions? How will you deal with sort of the coronavirus and trying to, keep your team safe and operating at a high level of effectiveness and efficiency? Should you be confirmed in your new role? Have you given that some thought, or what experiences do you have in your current role that you'd bring to bear on that issue should you be confirmed?
Senator, thank you very much. Yes, I have given that some thought. As the director of the Joint Staff, and if confirmed, Northcom would continue to think about that. The department has put in a 4-tier process for testing to ensure that the mission continues. So Tier 1 nuclear forces, for example, a 4-tier process to ensure that that folks are tested, and if positive, they are quarantined accordingly. This is all about continuing with the mission. So yes, Senator, I would continue with that process if confirmed. In addition to that, following the CDC guidelines and the policies of the department that are put in place to keep the mission effective and keep the force ready. If confirmed, I look forward to partnering with you, the committee, to ensure we can get through this. Thank you, Senator.
General Dickinson.
Senator, in my current job as the Deputy at U.S. Space Command, we've gone through very detailed planning to make sure that we have accounted for the coronavirus in terms of making sure that our space mission areas have been protected from it. As you can imagine, Senator, we've got many no-fail missions within the command right now that we're using, and our ability to take the guidance that we've received from DOD, take that imparted into our planning process as really, we've had a good success story to this date in terms of making sure we preserve that space capability for the nation. And if confirmed, I will continue to do that and work with the committee as well as the department.
Thank you both. I look forward to supporting both your nominations.
Very good. Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank both of our witnesses for your service and for your willingness to continue to serve. Let me first I want to strongly associate myself with Senator Kane's comments about the NDAA and every provision in it, including the removal of the Confederate names. I think that is is so important right now. That, and if you know, if the president wants to continue to be on the wrong side of history on that point, then that's his prerogative. But this committee, as well as the Senate of the United States and the House of Representatives, have decided they're going to be on the right side of history on this. And I am hopeful that we can get this across the finish line and do all those great things that we set out to do when we first started consideration of that bill. General Dickinson, thank you for the shout out, the Roll Tide shout out earlier today. And also, I appreciate the fact that your son, who just graduated, is going to be training to fly helicopters. I'll tell you, my son also just graduated, and right now he's just kind of hovering around our house, waiting to go to law school or graduate school or something. But thank you for that. I do want to ask about your time in Huntsville. And as you are well aware, with Space Command, Huntsville was one of the finalists to be the headquarters for Space Command. That got changed recently, and that process has been reopened. And in a hearing last year, actually a couple of hearings, I've raised concerns about that. I was pretty upset that had been reopened because it seemed to me that there were some presidential politics coming into play. Secretary Esper, Secretary Barrett assured me that was not the case, but I still have my doubts. But the one thing that Secretary Esper talked about was the fact that no decision was going to be made. So I have two questions for you. No decision made before the election. So I have two questions. Could you talk a little bit? You've been in Huntsville as the head of the Army Space and Missile Defense Command. Could you talk to us a little bit about the importance of Huntsville and the operations there to our overall mission in space?
Senator, my personal experience from being the commander at U.S. Army Space Missile Defense Command was that Huntsville is a great place to live and a great place to work. And I would tell you that my wife and I, we enjoyed the community as well in Huntsville, Alabama. And it does have, as you know, Senator, it has a lot of capabilities there in terms of the space enterprise with NASA, Marshall Space Flight Center, those types of activities, along with the Missile Defense Agency. So there are there is a lot of technical base, if you will, that's indigenous, if you will, in Huntsville, Alabama.
Well, thank you. My next question about that is that if, you know, I know that the basing decision is not going to be yours to make, but if confirmed as the next commander of SpaceCom, will you support Secretary Esper in keeping his promise about timing? And will you commit to offer your best military advice about the headquarters location based on the needs of the command and not the desires of political leaders?
Senator, I support Secretary Esper in his concept for the basing decision that'll be made. I feel that it is, in my opinion, a fair, transparent, holistic look that will be done and is already underway. And at the end of that, Senator, I will provide my best military advice if asked for that opportunity to the Secretary of Defense.
Thank you, General. General Vanherck, real quick, I know you and Senator Reid discussed about the lessons for any pandemic that may occur in the future. And I'm assuming that we're also looking from the military at lessons learned. I'd like to ask you real quick about the two hospital ships that we have, the Comfort and the Mercy. I think that they were launched in 1976 and converted to hospital ships in 86. Would you agree that those hospital ships provide an important capability that we want to have in future pandemics? And would you support in trying to modernize those assets and maybe increasing the number of those type of assets?
Senator, I agree that those hospital ships are crucial to our warfighting and any response and execution of any O plan. Specific to their modernization, if that is a way forward, absolutely, I would support that to ensure that we keep that critical capability for the future.
Great. Thank you, General. Thank you both for your service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you. And before going to our last member, which will be Senator Duckworth, the last two Democrats to speak both made quite an issue out of the one statement that the President has made. And I'd like to clarify a little bit because I happen to agree with that statement that he made. It's an objective, an objection to trying to rewrite the history of America. Now, I was stationed many years ago. I was stationed in Fort Lee, Virginia. So I know have a little bit of personal background in that. And I think there are a lot of people who just legitimately don't want to disregard the history of this country as actually happened. And that's a legitimate concern. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do think that it is important to remember history so we shall never repeat itself. But as a soldier, I did not care to be serving at Fort Rucker, Alabama. I love Fort Rucker. I love Dothan Enterprise, Ozark area. I had some wonderful times there, but I certainly did not appreciate being posted to a base name for a traitor who raised arms against our nation. General Vanherck, our country is facing daunting challenges. A deadly pandemic has killed more than 148,000 Americans in a matter of months. An economic recession is battering our country, and members of the National Guard have been ordered to intervene while their fellow Americans exercise their First Amendment rights. A situation that has both troubled those concerned about the state of civil-military relations and placed many of our Guardsmen in a difficult situation at the center of public debate. The resiliency of our country and our government is truly being tested. The National Guard has not been exempt from this, and we've had this discussion partially already today. The Guard's domestic contributions have been simply staggering. The National Guard has activated thousands of citizen soldiers and airmen domestically while continuing to carry out regularly scheduled missions and overseas deployments. That is why earlier this week, the National Guard reached a new peak of over, as you've mentioned, 120,000 personnel mobilized worldwide. In your own words, General Vanherck, can you tell me how you see the National Guard's role in the execution of NORTHCOM's missions?
Thank you, Senator. The National Guard, as you point out, is doing incredible things all around the globe. And I think today it's over almost 70,000 Guardsmen, not only in the United States, but abroad. The National Guard plays a crucial role in the NORTHCOM mission. Defense support of civil authorities is crucial across all 50 states and territories to ensure that linked and ready to go. NORTHCOM routinely trains and works with the National Guard and the states. And so that relationship is vitally important. What I would commit to you, if confirmed, is I would continue to do that. I'd work closely with General Hokanson as he gets in the seat and all the governors and the tags as well. That's a crucial mission, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. In mid-May, during the height of COVID-19 response efforts, I was alerted to friction points between National Guard and NORTHCOM. There appears to be a lack of firsthand experience among NORTHCOM leadership concerning how the National Guard response occurs at the state level. In the past, the deputy commander at NORTHCOM was required to be a National Guard officer. Now that position is open to any reserve component officer, not necessarily a Guardsman or woman. If a commander or deputy commander at NORTHCOM does not have much experience with the National Guard or Homeland missions, it can be hard to understand many of the Guard's complexities. For example, the National Guard ran into issues with NORTHCOM failing to appoint dual status commanders. Fortunately, the Guard was able to address these issues, but not every situation will afford the luxury of time. General Vanherck, if confirmed, how do you plan to increase the NORTHCOM senior leadership's understanding of the National Guard's complexities and its mission requirements? And if confirmed, will you commit to recording and publishing NORTHCOM's lessons learned from its response to COVID-19 and civil unrest to ensure NORTHCOM does not experience similar difficulties in the future?
Thank you, Senator. With regards to the first question, if confirmed, I would work closely to ensure that all the senior leadership gets the proper training and exposure to the key National Guard leadership. With regards to the lessons learned, the department is going through a process right now to capture lessons learned from COVID. I commit to you and this committee that we will share those lessons learned, and if confirmed, from a NORTHCOM perspective, implement those lessons learned. It will be crucial.
Thank you, General. General Dickinson, I just have a minute left. My questions on the decision and timing on the headquarters of location have been asked. I just wanted to thank you and your family for your service, but also to let your son, if you could relay a message to your son, tell him real pilots fly air assault. Whoop.
Well,
Thank you so much. I yield back,
Senator.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And let me thank our witnesses and our General Vanherck and General Dickinson for the time you've given us and the frank ways in which you have responded to the questions. And we'll all be looking forward to working with both each of you in your new capacity. Thank you very much, and we are adjourned.